Okay, let's get started here. Alrighty. Let's see. Since it's a smaller group, curious, who was on the last call? I know Brooke was on the last call. Molly, you weren't, were you?
I was not, but I did watch the replay.
Okay, cool. And then Isabella, I'm not sure if you were on the last call either. Feel free to type in. Okay, Brooke was, yes. Okay, this will just, so some of this is going to be a little bit repetitive. Since this is round two, it's been about a week and a half since our last session. I'm trying to keep the momentum alive. So if you're joining for a second time, forgive me for restating a few of the basics. But apparently you have to hear something 2 to 7 times to remember it. So just consider this time number two. So in the first session, I shared that the reason I'm doing these sessions totally free, it's purely out of passion. I'm really excited to share all of this because it feels like having magic. And I want to share that with anyone who wants it for themselves. And I want to be excited with you about what you're building. Like I get fueled to hear like the success stories of what people do with AI. If we haven't met yet, I'm Beth. I've been an executive assistant for 12 years. I think all of you are probably EAs, but even if you weren't, that's okay too. This is really relevant to anyone who has a computer and works in slide decks. I'm also curious who on the call has used AI for slide decks before, and specifically if anyone has used Gamma or Claude for this use case. So feel free to drop that in the chat, and I'll kind of keep an eye on that as I go through these next couple slides. Lastly, this is my disclosure to let you know that I have no professional training. I don't know the answers to everything, especially within these tools. I don't work for these companies. I just use them a lot. So if there's something that you know that I don't, feel free to speak up during the session. I like to learn as well. All right. So what you'll walk away with today. Hopefully, a super awesome slide deck, confidence that you can do this again. And then lastly, the reflex and inspiration. This is the one that I emphasize the most. The reflex. The more that you use AI and the more that you get practice with it, hopefully, the more that you think to use it. Like a good example is last night I was generating QR codes for this deck, and I had them for the last session, and I used this like free online tool. And my trial had expired, and it was like, oh, in order for your QR codes to still work, like you need to pay now for all these to be active again. And I considered it, and then I just went in Claude and I said, "Can you generate QR codes?" And it's like, of course I can. I'm like, okay, perfect. So all these like small things, it's like really just asking yourself in every instance, can I use AI for this? And then hopefully a little bit of inspiration. How we're going to get there. I'm going to cover some basics and show you a demo of the tools we'll be using, and then you'll open Gamma and Claude and execute for yourself. And then at the end, if folks want to, totally optional, we'll have time for a little show and tell, only if you're up for it. And here's how we'll work together over the next hour. It's a little bit informal, especially since we have a smaller group. Like there are no rules, but just a few guidelines here. If you want to ask questions, feel free to just come off mute. I don't care if I'm in the middle of a sentence. Like this can be a conversation. Or if you prefer, you can use the raise your hand feature or ask questions in the chat. Um, Mute if you're not talking, please just keep yourself muted. And then lastly, the pauses. Since this is a working session, there will be periods where I'm not talking and we're not having conversation, and that's totally fine. This is an awkward silence, like we're actually working. So I'm not going to worry about filling every silence with my voice while you're working because I want you to walk away with something today. But with that said, if there is a pause, it is in the middle of the working session, feel free to come off mute and ask questions and we can have some conversation. If you don't want to hear us, if you're like in the middle of working on something, feel free to turn us down while you're like hammering away at something. Um, okay. Any questions on how today is going to look or how to work together? Of course, Michelle. So happy you're here. I was just going over a few of the basics. We haven't dived into the content yet. I'll repaste the instructions for redeeming your code with Gamma. This will give you a free month of Pro. So I just sent that in the chat. So while I'm going through a few of these basics here, feel free to start getting your account set up. All right. What is vibe coding? I'm going to go over this definition every time I have a session and I'll make it brief because it's a little bit abstract until you start doing it. Vibe coding is describing what you want in plain language and letting AI handle the technical part. You don't really have to know what that means, the technical part. All it means is when you ask it to do something, it's going to generate a bunch of technicalities in the background, a bunch of code to execute something for you. So that's what vibe coding is. And I want to start with like a level set here of what these sessions are and where we're headed. And I wanted you to think about it like we're in terms of a swimming pool. So the first steps when you get in the pool are like just dipping your toes in. That's the starting point, right? And I imagined many of you are here. Like you've used AI for writing, for research, for emails. That's like you're getting your feet wet. Today, where we're at is slide decks, spreadsheets, things like that. We're still very much like just off the steps. I would say we're in the shallow end of like what AI can do and how we're using it. And if you're in this zone right now, that's totally fine. This is great. This is a great start. And it's why I'm starting these sessions with some of the basics. When you get a little bit further into the shallow section, into the middle of the pool, these are using things, using AI for things like automations and automating workflows. So maybe you've heard of some of these tools, maybe you haven't. This includes tools like Zapier, Google Apps Script, N8N, or Lovable. This is like ways you can automate and build very easily by vibe coding. And this is the best part, and this is where we're headed. And like these are the types of sessions that I'm working up to because I feel like they're the most important. And this is the deep end. The deep end is like the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland, but in the best way. It's like the place where you start doing things as an EA you never thought would be possible. And this is using tools like Cursor, Claude Code, or Visual Studio Code. These tools here, you don't even have to know what they do right now. I'm just trying to give you an idea of where we're headed. And which tool you use when you're in the deep end is all up to preference. And eventually in these sessions, we'll go through each of those tools. Any questions about the swimming pool and kind of where we are or what the sessions will look like in the future? Okay, I'll keep moving here. I go over this also in every session. Do I have to write really good prompts to vibe code? The answer is no. And sure, you can spend a lot of time crafting these amazing prompts and giving a lot of context, but I am somebody who likes to execute quickly, and I typically would prefer to just start executing my task than spending a lot of time on a prompt. Maybe this is a bad practice, maybe it's a good practice. All I know is that it's worked for me, and I know it can work for you too. So this is what I call lazy girl prompting. Lazy girl prompting is when you open AI and instead of crafting this beautiful long prompt that takes you a lot of time and seems professional, you're just going to start typing. Like start typing your stream of consciousness, or open a place to dictate like Claude, ChatGPT, Apple Notes, anywhere where you can dictate and get your thoughts out on paper, which you can then get into an AI system. And again, there's nothing wrong with writing the perfect prompt if you have the time and patience for it. And if you're working on something more complex, sure, go for it. But it's worked for me to make complex things just by simply typing my stream of consciousness. And you can do this today, and I'll show you how. All right, let's jump into the demo. The first thing I'm going to show is Gamma. So let me open Gamma here for you. When you come to Gamma, once you've upgraded, you should have a bunch of credits in your account now to create. And we'll start in the upper left-hand corner by clicking Create New, and you'll see the little AI emblem. And you have a few different options on this first page. Number one is Generate, and this is what we're going to do first. So create from a one-line prompt in a few seconds. This is best for, like, you don't really have much of a starting point. You don't have an outline. You don't have, like, an exact description of what you want your slide to say. So this is how we'll build this today. So at the top, you'll see a couple different options for what type of thing you want to create. We're going to focus on presentations. That's what this is about. Then it'll give you an option for how many cards. Cards is equivalent to the number of slides. They just call them cards. Card design mode. Classic is where you can edit your text boxes, your images, and everything is editable. Studio is where every card or slide becomes an image, and the only way to edit that image is by asking AI. To me, that's not very helpful, so I'm going to stick with classic. The size, this is the side of the slide. I like to keep mine traditional, like your typical PowerPoint or Google slide size, the 16 by 9. Okay, so those are the basics there, and I'm going to drop in my prompt. The example I'm going to use today is creating an offsite deck. Typically I do this for whatever department I'm supporting or whatever leadership offsite is coming up. But today I'm going to pretend like there was an offsite for the vibe coding for EA's community. And I'm going to drop in this prompt here that says, I want to create an offsite deck for my vibe coding for EA's offsite. This is where executive assistants come together to learn about vibe coding and put it into practice. This is a total lazy girl prompt. I am not being specific here, and I'm doing this on purpose because I want to see what it generates. But you can go as detailed as you like. When I click generate outline, what it's doing right now is before it shows me anything visually, it's going to show me the text and the content of each slide. So I haven't given it any context, but because it's AI, it's put its context together itself. What is vibe coding? Why EAs should care? How it works? A real world example, tools, best practices. So this is a pretty good like outline of probably how you should do something like this. So I'm going to just scroll down and click generate to see what it comes up with visually. Okay, so now we can watch it work and create the slides. So it's doing two things here. It's adding the content, but it's also generating AI images. Um, you have the ability to decide whether you want stock imagery or AI generated images. I just selected the default. And then once it's done, we'll go through how you can customize the theme and the way that this looks. While it's working, I'll talk a little bit more about like the pros and cons of each of these. So the pros of Gamma is it's a good starting point if you are really struggle with the design side of things, or if you need to create a deck from scratch. Like say your company doesn't have like a template slide deck, or you don't want to use that, or it's a different use case. Gamma is great for starting from scratch for these things. Okay, so let's scroll through and see what it created here. Um, it looks nice. It's not quite like my branding, but I can change that. It's added some AI generated images here. If I want to do something like change the images, all I have to do is click on this image and click the little edit with agent. And I can chat with it and say something like, I only want to use black and white, AI generated images. So change this to black and white. Or maybe I only want to see females in the image or something else. So you can edit these images by clicking on the little stars for the agent on anything in your slide deck. Okay, so this looks pretty good, but maybe I want to change the design to be a little bit more in line with my brand. So I can go to the top and click theme. And then here I have a bunch of different themes I can choose from. I can kind of just click through a few of these so you can see. And they're very nicely done. Like visually, they look great. But I can also upload my own branding, my own vibe coding for EA's branding by clicking the custom button here. And then you'll see I have an option to create a new theme or import. So what you could do is if your company has a template slide deck or a brand guideline PDF, you can drop that in to create a theme. So I've created one for vibe coding for EAs, and anytime I want to apply that, I just click this theme and it's got my colors. Any questions on what we've seen so far? Or thoughts, reactions? Okay. Okay, so let's go back to that first screen that I showed where I chose an option of what I wanted to create. And I'm going to click create new again. This is the second option. The second option is best if you already have a specific outline. You know exactly what you want your slides to say. You have an agenda for your offsite that you're ready to like have on the screen and walk people through each day, but you just need help making it pretty. So let me show you my outline for this. I'm going to click paste in text for this option. Same thing, I've got presentation, traditional. I'm going to paste in my outline and I can separate each slide with 3 dashes and it'll know it'll be a new slide. So I've got vibe coding for EA's retreat, day one. We're gonna have breakfast, gonna have a welcome slide, some housekeeping items. And if I scroll down to the bottom, what do you want to do with this content? I don't want it to like use its AI abilities and like change everything I wrote because I already know I want it to say this. So I'm going to select preserve this exact text and continue. Okay. And this time, before it goes into creating it, I can be more specific with my theme. So I'm going to click here. Let's say I'm going to do this one. And then image source, this is where I mentioned you can choose stock images or AI generated, and then you can even choose which AI model. Some AI models are better at generating images than others, and those will cost you a bit more in credits. For me, I'm just going to stick with the automatic. And then I'm going to add in, I actually don't know if this will work, but I'm going to add in black and white images only to see, because that's typically with my brain, I'd only do black and white, and I want them to be photorealistic. But if I wanted, they could be illustrations, abstract, etc. There's a bunch of options here. So let's see what it generates for us. One of the cool things I love about Gamma is when it generates things, it also generates icons that go with whatever style you have, and all of that's customizable. So you can click in there if you want to change out, any of these icons that it's populating, everything's customizable. And this one, I went beyond just the 10 slides. I did my entire day one, so it's going to walk us through each step of the first day of the offsite. Okay, it's almost done. It typically tends to populate all of the text and like charts and things first, and then it goes back and then adds all the images. Okay, so I had asked it to do black and white only images, but I kind of like what it did, how it kept the design of this specific theme and had kept a little bit of color in some of the images. I think that looks cool. And let's go through the rest. The housekeeping items, everything is great, looks really organized. And one thing I was thinking here is Molly, when I'm thinking about your use case or somebody where you don't have this tool at the company yet, how you could maybe create this with like template info and then bring it over to PowerPoint or to Google Slides and just plug in your company's info. Our objectives, ground rules. Again, I think this looks really good. Um, Let me scroll down to the bottom here. Say, for example, this what's next. This is the last slide of the day, trying to tell people what's going to happen the rest of the day. If I want to change the way this layout looks, I can just click on, not the icon, I can click on this entire layout where it says select layout, and then I can click change layout. And on the right, it'll show me all the suggested layouts based on this content. So say, for example, I want it to be in boxes. It could be in boxes instead. Or if I want it to be in like a chronological order, I can go into a sequence like this. So it makes it super easy to play around if you want to customize anything. Any questions so far on this content or how to do something in Gamma? It should be pretty user friendly, but if there's something specific you're wondering about, I'm happy to click around and look at things.
So, but Gamma can, I don't know the answer to this. Can Gamma do automations and like what is it called? Not automations, like transition fun stuff.
Like,
Like how in PowerPoint, like that's something that my leader does a lot. She wants things to like pop up and like they stay hidden. And then when she's
that's a really
talking.
good question. Let's see. So if like you want something to pop up, like kind of like an animation, like where
Yes, that's what
on
I'm
click.
thinking of.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I've never played around with that feature. Let's I always go to Claudius for all of my questions, so let's ask. Can't Claudius, I call Claude, is another tool, another AI tool I use. So I'm gonna ask. Okay, so I'm gonna work on getting the answer to that. We'll see what it says. And then in the meantime, I'm going to show kind of a different use case, Molly, which might make more sense if you want like the more traditional type of slides.
Cool.
Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show what happens when I paste that same exact content, that same slide deck, or sorry, that same content for the offsite into Claude and not into Gamma. And I don't think people have this like instinct to use Claude for slides so much. I think they think about Claude or ChatGPT more like helping you get the content for what goes in the slides, which you absolutely should, and that's great. But for the actual design itself, I've noticed that in the last couple months, Claude has really stepped its game up in creating stuff that's visually appealing. So let's look at what that looks like. By the way, Claude did come back and say that Gamma doesn't give you as much granular control over animations and transitions as PowerPoint. You can't create intricate or custom animations for every object like you might be used to on traditional slide tools. Okay, so I'm pulling open. Whoops. Sorry, I think I lost you guys over here. Are you guys still seeing my are you still seeing the gamma? No, I don't think you are.
I just see a box of code.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to look here at the retreat deck creation. So again, like in my last session, this is something I did ahead of time just so you guys didn't have to be on here and watching the whole thing work. So I asked it, the PowerPoint deck attach write out agenda. Okay, sorry, it was actually the second chat here. I actually had it write the whole agenda for me. So this is it producing that thing that I dropped into Gamma. So if I scroll down now, I'm going to ask it to, let's see. I was refining all of the content. And then I asked it, generate a slide deck with the above, which the content it created, but for only day one. Be sure the speaker notes go into the speaker notes section. Um, one of the limitations I found with Gamma was that I had a bunch of speaker notes I wanted to include, but it couldn't paste them into speaker notes. But this is something Claude can do. So let's see what it created for me. Okay, so this is what Claude created. And I also had it use my branding. I'll go through in a second how I did that and how it used the vibe coding for EA's branding. One thing I like about this is that this is actually closer to my true branding. When I added my theme into Gamma, it wasn't quite exactly what my branding is, and I've done it with my companies as well, where I dropped in our slide deck. So it wasn't as good. Like if you just need to create one slide that needs to look just like your company's formatting, Claude might be a better tool. So this I'll go through here. This is the housekeeping items in the beginning. It's simple, and Claude does not have the ability to add images or generate AI images like Gamma does. So that's a limitation here. You'd have to add those in on your own. But you could ask Claude, hey, leave gaps or leave space on the slide for me to drop in images. So going through here, a couple of these others. One thing I notice about Claude is sometimes the text can be a little bit small, so I have to spend a little bit of time going through making things bigger. But in general, I'd say that it has done a lot of the heavy lifting for me. Another thing I notice is that the text boxes aren't always big enough, so I have to just go and drag so that it looks right. And now you know exactly what I used to build the slide deck that we're using today for this session. I used Claude. Okay, here's a few others. Yep, so relatively good, a few things that are off. And one last thing I want to show is if you have a use case where you need to be using charts or like pulling in data from like a Google sheet or an Excel sheet to populate a chart on a slide, let's go through that. Okay, let me see here. So let's say that my department recently had, or my company recently did an engagement survey, and I'm responsible for adding the engagement survey results to a slide to drop in to present to the team. Um, Here's the data I have. It's in a Google Sheet. Let me see here. And then I'm going to go to Claude and show you the prompt that I used. Projects, add to all hands deck. So this is where I ask it, use the data attached, and I gave it the Excel file to create a slide. To create a slide visuals, I can add to my slide deck. Use vibe coding for EA's branding. This is also very lazy girl prompting. I wasn't specific at all. I just wanted to see what it would produce. So let's look at that. By the way, when you ask it to do something, it's going to do a bunch of work. And then at the bottom, if I scroll all the way to the bottom, this is all the work is doing. It's going to give me a result, which shows me that. And I can click on it and download it, or I can open it in Google Drive if I have Google synced to my Claude account. Okay. So this is what Claude spit out. This is the engagement survey results. And I really like the way that it did this. So it's telling me like some overall scores. It's giving me like the points year over year, what was measured. And remember, I didn't tell it to pull any of this data. It just analyzed the data that was there and pulled out what it thought was important to highlight. And I like that it knows that overall score, this is the most important thing we need to highlight. Next, it's going to show some of our top performing drivers, show the percentage, and show some comparison against what the benchmark was. The crazy thing about this is that this isn't using any type of chart tool that exists within Google Sheets or within PowerPoint. It literally generated individual boxes and did this. So to me, this is like cool feature, but at the same time, if I need to change something or if I need to update the data, that means that it's not going to be responsive. So if I go back and change what's in here, it's not going to update automatically on what's in my slide deck. So just know that unless you specify it to do it a certain way, that can be a limitation. It's added some other year over year gains numbers here where I can maybe pop in some icons or some images if I want to go with each of these or put them in the boxes at the top. And then again, areas for opportunity. It analyzed the data and pulled a key insight. Obviously, all of this is stuff that I would check to ensure that it was actually accurate because AI can hallucinate. And then lastly, it generated a chart based on the data. And again, I found that I wasn't actually able to edit this. So I asked it again if it could create the charts so that they were responsive. So let's see what it produced once I did that. So it gave me a new Excel file where it had all of my original data on the first slide. And then for each of the metrics, it created a new tab and then created a chart that's reflective of whatever is in this tab. And so if I want, I can tell it to change the formatting of this. If I want it designed with different colors, I can tell it to do that. And what I can do is I can actually just copy this and paste it into my deck if I create a new slide. Oops. I don't know why. Oh, I think this, okay. If I create a new slide and paste this, it'll give me the option to link it to the spreadsheet so that anytime I update that data, it's reflective in that chart. Any questions on those features?
I may have blinked and missed it. So when when you went from static to dynamic polling,
Yeah,
where I missed it from the spreadsheet, like did you go to Claude to ask it how to do
I
that?
did. Yeah. So let
Okay,
me
I
pull
missed
up.
that part.
No, it's okay. I think I didn't specifically go back to the chat, but let's see, where did I? I said, can you connect the data to the actual chart feature in Excel or Google Sheets so that in the event I need to update the data, it's reflecting those updates? Again, not a perfect prompt, totally just giving it my thoughts. And yeah, so it did that here and then produced that Excel file, which I added to Google Sheets.
Okay. And then is there
Um,
a way for you to get it to be aesthetically the same? So I saw that the colors came back different and it was just
yes.
different.
Yeah, so then I said I want it branded with my
Oh.
vibe coding for EA's branding. I'm reading my mind, Molly. So let's go over and see what it produced.
So I thought that looked different than the others.
It does. I actually don't even know if let's open that now. So let's see what that looks like. This will be new to me. Actually, I didn't actually open and see the result. So let's
Okay.
see. There we go. So
That
there's my
that's the
purple,
blue.
there's my colors.
Got it.
And it even applied the vibe coding for EA's branding even on the sheet itself. So like this stuff here, this is all outlined in my brand guidelines as well.
Cool.
Really quick, for those who weren't on the last session, I want to show how you get your brand guidelines or your company's brand guidelines into Claude so that it remembers every single time you want to use them and it can just apply them automatically. So let's look at that. So if I open Claude and I open a new chat, we're going to use something called skills. Skills is Claude's way of remembering how to do something over and over again without you having to teach it. So I can say, I want to create a skill for my vibe coding for EA's branding. And then I'm going to drop in my branding or the slide deck. So I have a folder here with my brand guidelines example. I drop that PDF in. And then once I send it, it's going to start generating and building a bunch of files. Okay. Since I've already done this, I'll just send that so you can see like what it's going to do. It's going to think and it's going to produce a bunch of files. But once I have those files, it's going to give me a zip folder full of all of the files. And you'll see it looks like this, files.zip. And to enable the skill, I'm going to come here and click settings and go to capabilities. And I'm going to scroll down to skills. And I click add, upload a skill, and then I'm going to bring in that zip file that it just created for me, and it's going to add that skill to my repository. I'm going to toggle it on so that I can use it. The reason you have a toggle is, say, for example, you're using your Cloud account and you have like multiple companies or something. You can turn one off so that it doesn't get confused when you say add my company branding. Let's see, I have two of them on. I haven't had an issue because I always specify like use the vibe coding for EA's branding. So once that's in here, anytime I ask it, that's how it generated my offsite slide deck with my branding. That's how it generated the charts with my branding. That's how it knew to do that. Any questions on creating a skill and getting your skill working in Claude? Okay, so just a recap of the tools we demoed. So we first did Gamma. It's bam, it creates a beautiful deck. It works really fast. It has a lot of creative aspects to it. I'd say visually, it's really appealing. It has like a newer feel to me than like traditional PowerPoint or slide decks. You can easily swap between themes and visuals within the deck or charts or anything that's visually displayed. A couple things to look out for is if you get into long conversations with their AI, like if you want it to change something like, hey, make this image black and white, or you start iterating, it can sometimes get a little bit confused. So just a heads up that some of the AI conversations aren't as smart, quote unquote, as I would say, like maybe something like Claude is at keeping track of like history. Um, I also noticed that the templates don't always adopt the company's branding perfectly. So you saw the difference of the vibe coding for EA's branding in Gamma and in Claude. Claude was a little bit more true to that. And of course, everything is customizable. So if I wanted to change the background color of a slide to purple, sure, I could do that. But in terms of like just being able to drag and drop and have it work, it wasn't as seamless. So Claude, on the other hand, there isn't much fanfare or flair in terms of images or it generating imagery for you. It still creates really clean and well-designed slides, but a little bit more traditional. And then there's also some tweaking you'll have to do with like the font boxes. Also, plus side of Claude is it can add speaker notes directly for you. Before we jump into the demo where you'll start to create for yourself, any questions on those tools or what we went over in terms of features? Okay. All right, here. Okay, so I'm going to jump back over to our slide here. This is what I'll consider the working time. So if you have something you want to create, this is a great time to do it in Gamma or Claude. If you have any issues redeeming your code for Gamma, let me know. And any issues during the working session, I'm happy to answer anything. And then in a little bit, in about 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes, we'll do a show and tell for anyone who wants to show their before and afters.
Quick question, Beth. Hiya, quick
Hi.
question.
Yes.
So I got my first deck up and going, and I'm curious when you were sharing the deck, were you in presenter mode internally in Gamma? And to do so, did you follow the thing and like download Gamma to your computer?
Sorry, so for
So
you
when
mean when
I'm
you're actually presenting like at the offsite, like how you present it?
Well, so I'm playing around with it, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, hey, try presenting. And I'm like, all right. And so up in the upper right, yep. And then when it says present, oh, it gave me options. Like, which view do you want to do it in?
Yeah.
So I did presenter view, correct.
Yeah.
And then it prompted me that I needed to download something. Hold on one second. I will tell you exactly what the screen said. I was just curious. So to get presenter view, it says that I need to install Gamma, like actually install it into
Uh-huh.
my computer. Is that what you've done? And have you?
No, I have not installed any
Okay.
like application on my phone.
Good.
What option did you choose that it like prompted you to do that?
So I chose presenter view,
Uh-huh.
and then I did the presenter person one. So
Yeah.
I'm the presenter. And then, I mean, I can share my screen with you. It's still open.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
Sure. Come on. Share screen. All right, I gotta move this. Here we go. It's thinking. It's just slow today. I don't know if you can see it yet. Does it come up?
Let me see. Oh, here we go. It was like another tab. I see. Yes, I see it now.
It says up here. Come on. Looks like it's just timing out on my end, but
Okay.
I don't know if you can see this or not.
Yeah. And this looks like a typical like presenter view. Like for example, I'm doing the
Right.
same with my Google, right?
Right. So here in this corner right here, it's asking me to install Gamma here.
Oh, is it making you do that in order to be
It's
able to?
not making me. I was just
Oh, okay.
curious. I was like,
Okay,
is that
gotcha.
a best practice or is that, something you've done? Just curious about the functionality.
So as far as I know, you don't need to download anything to use presenter mode in Gamma since it's directly like within the web platform. But I think that I'm sure you could do the same thing if it's downloaded your computer. Maybe that's like a way for them to get you to download the app. I'm not entirely sure, but I know that it's not like a requirement in order to present.
Okay, cool. I'm not going to do it then.
Yeah. And in the meantime, Molly, I'm gonna test something. I'm gonna download what like the Gamma and see. I almost feel like I maybe it's just like what we're comfortable with, but I'd almost feel like better downloading the Gamma and then presenting it in like PowerPoint or in Google Slides, like something I'm more familiar with. So I'm gonna see what that looks like if I were to do it that way.
Yeah, or even can you flip it into Canva? I do most of my presenting through Canva
Oh,
these
interesting.
days.
Okay, gotcha.
I wonder.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure
could
you
try
could.
that too.
Let's give it a test.
All right, I'm gonna close it. I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh, wait. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. By the way, full disclosure, the main thing I've used Gamma for is actually creating a work portfolio deck, which is something I've only shared virtually. Like I exported it as a PDF. So this is great, like if you want to create a slide deck or differentiate yourself, like with all of your experience and have different slides for that. That it was my big use case for this, and which is only something I shared virtually. But yeah, so I'm going to test now, Molly, what it's like if I upload it to Drive and present from there.
That's interesting because so what I'm presenting on something similar this week with using Notebook LM in your job search specifically. And so I took the LinkedIn and then I
Yeah.
dropped it in. I said create a deck for it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm practicing with, but it's actually taking your LinkedIn and or your resume, putting it into Notebook LM, and it populates an infographic for you. So it's kind of the
Oh,
same
cool.
vein. It's actually really neat.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wonder if it could just do that in place of Notebook.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
curious. I'm gonna keep messing around here.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do one more minute, and then I know there's only a couple folks on, so Molly or Brooke, if you wanted to share something you were working on, no pressure, but I'll check back in a minute. Alrighty. So I know that wasn't a ton of working time, but curious if it was able to produce anything for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I can share mine.
Okay, great.
So So this week actually Kathy Adams, she's an admin advocate. She asked me to come on and do a notebook LM session about how I use notebook LM when I'm looking for doing job search stuff. So I went on to LinkedIn and I grabbed her post on it and then I just dropped it in as and I'm a huge lazy girl prompter. I don't know how to prompt any other way.
Yeah, yes.
Like it's authentic prompting. I just said, "Hey, I'm presenting. This is the host post. I need a deck for this Wednesday." And so then it came up with a lot. Can you guys see it? I'm thinking.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
see the control alt employed. That's
Yeah.
super
So
cool.
that's the name of the session. It's got a lot of words. I usually don't put this many words, so there's an opportunity to drill back. The first the first version had a gentleman here and I updated to woman. I did notice that these little books come up, kind of
Yeah.
funky. I love the 2018 calendar. I thought that was a nice touch.
Hey, good attention to detail on noticing that it was even 2018.
At least the plant wasn't dead, right? Well,
Yeah.
and the typewriter, I mean, come on, guys. This is pretty.
That's so funny.
So,
Question, you were
yeah.
mentioning the text. So I think it gives some like options on like concise, detailed.
Oh,
Like, did
yeah.
you choose one of those?
So I didn't. I just let it go because I was just
Okay,
curious
okay.
what it would come up with. And so that's the opportunity is to go back and like drill it down. And I also did not put anything like, don't change anything. So it came up with some of its own stuff. Again, this is all just stuff I probably wouldn't do. This is kind of funky wonky.
The
So I
graphic,
was,
yeah.
some again, opportunity to revisit formatting and stuff. And then it does kind of just go through kind of what I'm going to be doing, which I mean, it was able to figure it out from a LinkedIn prompt,
Yeah.
what I'm going to be doing. Again, this is great. I love this. That there's definitely pieces just on this first take that I'm going to use 100%. This just saved me a lot of time today.
Okay, amazing.
Perfect
That's great.
timing. Again, scenarios and stuff. The font here is a little bit wonky. I don't know if it's supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just gave me some like really good stuff. Again, this is pretty beautiful. It is the right instructions. I checked that. Um, Sample prompts. I mean, I'm not into prompting, but I always provide some because people seem to really kind of, if they aren't
Yeah.
comfortable yet, they really get attached to having like a prompt,
Yes, yes,
how
for
I
sure.
need some help with that. So
Yeah.
having some things there. Um, Again, this is not anything that I had in here, the complementary tools, but that's really cool. I like the set shift. Yep, and then kind of like it ends out there. This was neat. I really kind of liked this. It gave me its own interpretive that's not in my content at all.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how much if that is 60% seems pretty high, but
Yeah.
totally possible, don't know. Again, I love the like Rolodex typewriter. I don't know, but
That's so
um
funny.
and her arm is rather large. But so yeah, so
Gotta
that
love those.
that
Maybe you need to like up the tier of like what it's using to generate the images.
exactly. Well, again, I just put, cartoon. I was just kind of floating through because I'm more concerned about the content
Yeah, for
that
sure.
I'm going to be speaking to. So that's what I came up with. Instantly, I am definitely able to use, I would say a good 50% of the content and either drop it in
Amazing.
somewhere or continue to work with this.
Yeah.
I also didn't put any brand stuff. I didn't give it any other requirements.
Awesome. That's so cool. I'm so glad that at least like you got somewhere with it and it'll save you time.
Oh, 100%. It's already saved me at least an hour today,
Yeah. Amazing.
for sure. Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Brooke, did you want to share anything? No pressure if you don't want to. If not, I can go on to announcements. Okay, well, feel free to come off, Brooke, if you change your mind or want to show anything. So we did our show and tell. A couple quick announcements. The next working session is Sunday, February 8th at 10 a.m. This is vibes coding inside of Google Workspace. So as I mentioned with the pool, this is going to be like we're getting into the shallow end. This was my gateway to like the world of vibe coding was using something called Google Apps Script. Don't even have to know what that means right now. All it means is that you can vibe code inside of Google Workspace. So the examples we'll use are using calendar logic. Are using calendar logic to create automations. There will be no external tools needed for this. So if your company is already using Google Workspace, no data ever leaves the ecosystem. There's no like additional permissions you need or any support or any tools. This all lives within Google and you can use it regardless of your IT permissions as far as I'm aware. Okay, and then next is we mentioned this on the last call is Lovable is sponsoring a vibe coding for EA's workshop. I've created a form to submit your availability. So you can scan this QR code. I will also drop the link in the chat. So the first link I'm sending is to sign up for the next session. The second week is to fill out the survey for your availability. I will directly use the results of this survey to schedule this session. So if you want to be there, check all the boxes for the days that work for you. I did focus a little bit more on weekends just because with this session with Lovable, if you're not sure what Lovable is a tool that allows you to build apps by vibe coding. And that means just talking in plain English in a chat, and it will produce a not fully functional, but it will produce a working prototype for you. So we'll need 2 hours for this session. I'll try to keep it short on the demo, but we'll need a lot more working time for you to produce something super duper awesome. So you can allocate 2 hours for that. And the reason I offered the weekends was so it doesn't interfere with a workday. Okay, next is let's stay connected. If we're not already, I would love to connect on LinkedIn. And if you haven't already joined the Slack community, that's where I post announcements and other happenings within the vibe coding world, new tools that come out. And then lastly, these sessions are totally free, but the thing that helps me, the only thing you can do for me in return is to fill out a survey. And I know that being EAs, you probably know how important surveys are after you do something. Again, this directly impacts like how I do the next sessions. So would love if you could take the survey. It's totally anonymous. I never send a non-anonymous survey, so you can feel free to be honest. I want to get better at this. So I'll link this in the chat as well, or you can use the QR code to fill out the survey. It's 5 questions, only 3 are required, and that's super helpful for me. Thank you so much for joining. I will send the recording and post this. Feel free to share it with anyone you might think would benefit from it. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is awesome.